Hi, welcome to ScholarHat YouTube channel. In today's session, you are going to learn about ASP.NET Core 6. So if you're willing to master the ASP.NET Core 6 from scratch, so this video is for you. In this video, I'm going to teach you what is ASP.NET Core and how it is different from the existing ASP.NET MVC. Then you will learn about the MVC pattern. You will learn about the Razor View Engine, routing, HTML helpers, tag helpers, forms and validation. What are the various data passing techniques like we have view data, view bag, temp data, session, cookies. And finally, we learn about how to perform the database operation in ASP.NET Core. So this course will help you to master the ASP.NET Core. If you are coming to the channel first time, I request you to please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon so that the information about such valuable courses will get notified. So let's get started with the course. So when it is coming to building any web application, so for building any web application, we have to deal with the three things. Like we have to deal with the data, logic, and the UI. Data here we hold using the object. Logic we write inside a class, and the UI it's our DOM, document object model. So when it is coming the object, so models are the objects in our application, and controller is a class where we write our presentation logic, and DOM is about the what are the view we having, what are the HTML markup we are putting over there. Those are going to be rendered as a DOM. So models are the domain objects. Controller is a class where we have written some logic. Now we will create a view. So view we are creating here based upon the action. What are the action we having here? We are creating the view. If looking at here for this login action, I can add a login view. So I will do right click here. Then there is option available add view. For add view, I'm using the Razor View option. Then click on this add button. It is suggesting the view name. We having the login here. So login is the view name here. It is suggesting to create. So it is not the necessary, let's say whatever the action name we having exactly with the same name, you have to create the view. The view name can be different. The benefit of using the same name for the view is whenever you are using the return view method, it automatically look out for a file which name is exactly same as we having the action name. Even we don't need to find out the view manually if the view name and action name are matching. So as a best practice, we always give the same name of the view file as we having the action name. And sometimes it happens you might be rendering a views from some other location, from some other folder. So that time the view name can be different. So possibility is both, but as a best practice, we give the same name. Now let's click on this add button here. So what it will do using the scaffolding, it will generate a folder with the name of account inside it. And inside the account folder, it will create a login view, a login file. So now we having the account folder here. Now inside the account folder, we have added a login view. So this is my account folder. And here I'm having the login file simply like this way. So benefit of giving the same name is you have to just do right click here, go to view. So directly I will go to that view if the view name and action name are same. So how the mapping is happening? If let's say view name is different, I have to pass the view name here explicitly. So here explicitly we need to pass the view name. Let's say it is my login. So I have to pass the view name as my login here. So here directly I cannot go to the my login from here. I have to look manually. So for my login, let's say I'm creating a view file, adding it with the name of my login. So it is my login here, my login here. And here I can mention the heading as my login. This is login here. So when I will request the account controller login action, it will serve the my login, not the login here. If you run the things, let's run it. So we can access that page directly by passing the controller name as account, action name as login this way. So what output I'm getting? I'm getting the output here file for my login, not for the login here. So this is the way how it is working for the login. So this is about the model view and controller need to know. So when it is coming the models, so models are the domain objects we create in different layers. If we're creating in the Dell layer, it would be data model, in Bell layer, business model, in service layer, service model, in presentation layer, presentation model. So depending upon how many layers you're having and how many objects you're creating in that layer, we can call them. It is not necessary in every project you will have data model, business model. No, it is not possible. Sometimes there might be a case you are using the one object or one model as a data model as well as a presentation model as well. It depends how you are using your object. But ultimately, models is an object simple. The second thing we having the view. So view used to define the UI of our web page. So what are the data we are getting from the database? Obviously, the data we have to represent on the view. We have to display that data on the view. So with the help of views, we do it. So here corresponding to the each controller, we having a folder inside the views folder. So here we having user controller. So for user controller, we having a user folder. And what are the action we having inside that? For those action, we having the mapping. So we having index section. So index section is mapped to the index file. Cancel action is mapped to the cancel file. So this is the mapping we having. So this mapping is defined internally at the framework level. So we don't need to worry about this mapping. The next thing we having here, what are the different types of views we can create? So first we having the standard view. So standard views are here used to create a view with some standard information where we are displaying some standard content. So we having the content for the home page. We can have for about us page. This is the standard view. Then we having here strongly type view. So in case of a strongly type view, at the view label, we add the model class reference. Let's say login model class reference we added here. And based upon this login model class, we can create the text box for username, the text box for password, and this is the button we having like this way. So strongly type view always having a dependency on a model class, and based upon that model class properties, we create the text boxes like this way. This is a strongly type view. The next one we having the partial view. So we having the view section on our page which we can reuse. So before that, let me show the way how we can create the strongly type view. So this is my login page. I created the login action. So I'm not passing the view name explicitly. Let me use here only login. So go to the login action. Let's make it a strongly type view. So to make it a strongly type view, I'm using here model directive. Then add the namespace. So the namespace for this login model class is this one. And actually this namespace already we added to this view import. If you're looking at here to the view import, this namespace we already added. So whatever the classes you are willing to use, those classes namespace, if we will add to the underscore view imports file. So now those classes we can access directly. I don't need to prefix this namespace before that. So on the login page, directly I can use this login view model this way. Now I can add here the form. Let me add here a form, and where this form data you will submit. I will submit this form data to the action login. Then we have in controller. So controller is here account. I'm adding the div. For the div, let's say I'm just creating here a label username. Let me add a text box, input type text. Then we having a speed as 4. It is for username. So what are the properties we having inside the login model class? Whether it's a username, whether it's a password. For those properties, we can create the text boxes. Okay. So similarly, I can add the another div, that is we having for password here. Password. Input type password. Don't mention a password. Then let me add here a submit button. Input type submit value equal to login here. This I can mention. So this is the way I can create a form where I'm submitting the value to the login and account controller this way. So this is my strongly type view. The next thing we having about here the partial view. So what I'm gonna say, we having some section on the page which we are willing to reuse. So those section we can create with the help of partial view. Just look at the case where we having a header section to create a menu. So this one we created as a header partial view here this way. So header partial view we are calling here using the partial tag. This is my partial tag. Using the partial tag I'm calling. Similar way we having a footer partial view, and using the partial tag I'm calling the footer partial view here this way. Similar way you can have a right sidebar. So in the right sidebar where you might showing the list of recent articles, the news, or category, we can enter them. So anything which is going to be reused statically, nothing is coming from the database, there we use the partial view to render the content. So right now we have not added any partial view in our code, but I will show you. The second thing, we having a layout. So what happens here when we design a website? Every website having a layout. As per the layout, we having the header, we having the footer. So for that purpose, we having a underscore layout.cshtml file. By default you will find out. And there I can define the design for header. There I can define the design for footer. There I can have a section that is changing dynamically based upon the route here. If a login it will render. For sign up will render. For about us will render. So this section keep changing. I like keep rendering the content here simply. So here if you're coming to, let's say, the any website, let's take the example of scholarhat.com. So we having a section. This is our header section. That is exactly same everywhere. This is my header. So we have rendered it as a partial view. Similar way, we having here a footer section. If you're looking at here, we having this footer section. This footer also constant everywhere. And these are the static information. Then we having a mid section. This mid section is keep changing depending upon the page you are visiting. Right now, our home page, it is coming like this way. If let's say you go to the master class, the header and footer are same. The center section is going to change. Clear? So this way we are designing our website. So how we decide the layouts? These layouts we decide with the help of a layout file. So this content, this center content, we render with the help of @render body. And in our website, we can have many layout. If you will look at the login and sign up page, it's a different layout. I don't have here header, I don't have here footer. That's another layout where we are designing everything separately, even on the create account page, even When it is coming a forgot password, it's a different layout we having. So depending upon the requirement, you can create many layout for the designing purpose, for the UI purpose. So exactly same thing we will do here. So right now we having only one layout, which is the part of the shared. Now let's see how we can create the partial view. So what are the things are commonly used? We can access from any page, let's say any controller. We keep inside the shared folder. So I'm adding here a partial view for header. So I'm adding here a razor view. Click on the add, define the view name. So view name is here underscore header is a view name here. It is underscore header. So usually we give the underscore as a prefix before the file name, which we are willing to use at more than one places. The reason behind it, we having all the file extension same. So how we will understood, like this is the file we are willing to reuse at more than one places. So by looking at the name only, we will understand, okay, this is the file we are going to use at more than one places. So that's why I did like this way. So in header, we will not have these things. Let's remove it. And whatever the header tag we having, I can cut from here. So now let me cut it from here and put to the underscore header this way. So this header tag I just cut from there and paste it here. Now this one I can call it. Let me call it here using the partial tag. Then the name of the header. It is underscore header. This way I can call it. It is simple. Exactly same way we having here for the footer as well. I can add a one more view. Then name is this time footer. So razor view empty and define the name as underscore footer. And on footer, I can add this footer section like this one. So cut it from here and paste it. Now footer also I can call here partial name and it is footer this way. So now these two are the reusable section, header and footer. So as the website will go, we have to add here more than one section, but these header and footer can be reused simply. So this is about the different type of views I explained to you. And for calling the partial view, we can use two syntaxes. One is using the partial tag. Another is this one. We can use here HTML.partial async method as well. So this is also the style you can follow. It's up to you which one you are willing to use. The second thing we having about here, the view component. Sometime it happens we having a section, that section we are going to render from the database or from the backend service, from the backend API. So think about a case, you want to show the list of categories or you want to show the newly added products. So those section we can render here using the view component. So these are various example here, dynamic navigation menu, category list, shopping cart, recently published articles. So such things we can render with the alpha view component. Even if you're looking at the ScholarHat.com, so ScholarHat.com we have designed and developed using the ASP.NET Core 6. So it is a complete website we build using the ASP.NET Core 6. So the section which is dynamically coming, this is the dynamic section. It is coming with the alpha view component. This is a static one. It is coming using the partial view. This is also that static one. It is also coming from the partial view. This is coming from the view component. So this site is designed with the alpha partial view component. Okay, so that we can reuse the things here. Is it clear? So let's see how we can create a view component. The case is, let's say we having an article. That article comments we want to render based upon the article ID. So obviously the comments keep changing based upon the article ID. So what I'm doing here, I'm just adding a controller for article. And for the index, I'm adding a view. There's a view index. So here I can define my article heading. Let's say it is what is ASP.NET Core. Here I can add a paragraph. It is an open source framework for building the web and API. This way we are doing the things. Clear? So here we can add the comment. I'm adding here H2 comments this way, and I will mention it. So here let me add a folder here for the components. So what I'm doing here, I'm adding a folder for the components. Folder name can be anything, is not the case. It should be the components itself. But of course, we are creating here the component. So I'm giving the folder name as component itself. But don't worry, this can be anything. Now let me add here a new item. So here I'm adding a new item. And now let me add here a class, a simple class. It's a simple class I'm adding here. And the class name I'm adding here, let's say the comments. View component, if you want to keep as a suffix, you can keep. Otherwise, you can leave it. It's up to you. It is similar to when we create the controller, we always keep the controller word as a suffix. Okay. Here, if you're willing to keep, you can keep. Otherwise, you can skip it. So I'm keeping it here. Comments view component. And let me inherit it from the view component. View component. This way. So this way we added this class here. Clear? So here we can add a method. We having a method, invoke method. Public I action result. It's a I action result. Even I can use here I view component result here this way. Then we having a method invoke like this way. And finally return the view here. So in this one, I can receive a parameter which you're willing to take, which you're willing to pass from the parent view here. So I'm passing here integer ID. So ID would be here in our case the article ID. So whenever I will call it, that time I will pass this article ID. So far we have not done any database operation. So I'm not writing any code to fetch the data from the database. I'm just returning here a simple C# list. Later on, you can write the code to fetch the data from the database. For the testing purpose, I'm just writing here a hard code command list. This way. Let's say good, we having great we have, let's say, keep it up. This will be adding. And finally, this comments I need to return. So whenever you are returning the comments, we have to return the view name also here. So I can return the view name here. So usually views also we keep in a folder. So what I can do, I can create here a folder for the views. There I can keep them. So I'm putting here, let's say, the components. So we having here the components. Folder name again can be anything here, but again I'm giving the same name as components. And here I'm adding a view file with the name of comments or with the name of underscore comments. Underscore comments. And here I can write the logic to read the data which I'm returning from here. So now first let me pass the complete path views shared, then we having underscore comments underscore comments dot cshtml. This I'm passing it. So we having views shared and underscore comments dot cshtml and the comment list I'm passing. Now it is a list. So in the ASP.NET Core MVC, we having a model. Model is a dynamic property here. So what are the data you will return with it? Say object, it will behave as an object. If it is a list, it will behave as a list. So I can use here an order list, and they are using the for each loop. I can repeat the return list of item. So it is li at the rate item this way. So this model is a built-in the UI. So what are the object you will return, whether it's a C# object, whether it's a C# list, based upon that it will behave. So right now we are returning the list, that's why it is behaving for the list. Is it clear now how we are mapping this to this view and how the data we are presenting? So far, is it clear? So this way I can call my comment component. So how the flow is working here? So as per the flow, so here okay, it is in the wrong path. It should be only, that's my mistake. You're right, it should be like this way. Clear? So we'll find out it is providing all the necessary things which we needed to render a view. Let's say we need here the HTTP context, we need here the view back, the URL, these many things it is providing to us. So what are the things are necessary to render a view? Because the view is going to render by a view engine. So all the things are offered by this view component class over here. Clear? So that's why we are inheriting it from the view component. So now the thing is, let me run the code here to figure out how it is behaving. So for this one, let me connect it from the header. At the header, we having the li. Here we having the li. So this is the way we just changing the here link. So ASP controller it is here for account. So I'm adding here for account. It's not account, it's an article. Article. Then we having the index, an article here. This way I have mentioned here. So now here let's click on the article 1. So in the article 1 you will see we having the title, we having here this text, and all the comments are going to render. Clear how the page is designed here. So next thing we having here about the controller. What is a controller? So controller is a class where we write our presentation logic. So what are the button click we have to handle, what are the data we have to fetch from the database. That complete thing we are writing at the controller label. Inside the controller we add the action, and those action return simple data, those action return the view depending upon the requirement here. So inside the controller we having the two types of method. We having the action method and we having the regular method. But now the question is here, how we will identify this is my regular method, this is my action method. This is going to be decided based upon the method behavior. If the method is responding to the user activity or user action, it will be the action method here. So you can see this is my method, action method. This is also the action method, because all the action method we can call by making the HTTP request. It can be GET request, it can be POST request. So for that we having the action method here simply. But the method which are not responding to the user activity, those are the non-action method. Like we having the index, we having here add. So all the methods inside the controller class which having the public access modifier will refer to as an action method. If your method having the other access modifier like private, protected, internal, are the regular method. Or what are the action method we are decorating with non-action attribute are going to consider as non-action method. Even they having the public access modifier also. Clear? So this is the things we having the things over here. So this is the non-action attribute we are going to apply here. So now I cannot call it from the outside by making the request. It is behave like as a regular method for doing some intermediate calculation. Clear? So here in our code, if you're looking at this is my action. So all are the action method because having the public access modifier, even if you will add a method like this way, public integer add, where I'm receiving two parameter in text comma into y, then return x plus y here this way. It's also a action method because I can call it by making the request. Let's see. So we having your account slash add x equal to 4, y equal to 3. You can see I'm getting here output here as 7. Clear? So this is the things how the action method it is. If I will change the access modifier from public to let's say protected or private, it is a non-action method. Now if we will try to access, it will be the non-action method now. Account add. What it is coming? It is coming here 4 not 4 error. Not found. So this is about the regular method and the action method. Okay. So next thing we having here about the action result. So in the ASP.NET Core MVC, we having the many action result classes. So here we having the action result, which is a base class that is going to inherited by the other result classes in the MVC. So we having the empty result. If you're not willing to return any content from an action, that time you can use empty result. If you're willing to return the JSON data, use JSON result. If you want to return a content like a string content, a number content, I can use content result. If you want to return a file PDF or like any other file, I can use file result here. If you want to return a view component, I can use view component result. To return a view, I can use view result. To return a partial view, I can use partial result. To go from one page to another page, like from one action to another action, we use redirect to action. So depending upon the requirement, depending upon the case, one of the result class we will use. But you have seen here that directly and indirectly, all the action result classes are inheriting the action result. Even they are implementing the action result interface as well. So sometimes it happens based upon the condition, our action can return the different result. So based upon one condition, it can return a view result. Based upon another condition, you can go to another page. You can look at the use case where you will understood. So let's say this is my add method. So this add method returning the integer value. It must be integer as a best practice. But object also will work fine. You cannot say object will not work fine. Exactly same thing applicable here. What this return view method is doing, return view method is returning a view result class object. And view result class is implementing this action result class interface. Am I right? It should be view result because I know my method is going to return the specific data, that is a view. But just look at this case, the login. Here I will add a condition. What condition I will add? I will add a condition if let's say mode state is valid, then you will write some logic to check the username and password availability in the database. After that, let's go to the another page. In this case, action result is a valid return type because this is returning the object of a redirect to action result class, and this is returning the object of the view result class. So the possibilities are here two, not one. It is possible only whenever you having a base type. I'm right. So action result is a interface which is implemented by the view result class and implemented by the redirect to action result class as well. So here action result is perfectly valid return type. View result, if you will try to mention it here, it will not work. It will give us the error if you will do this one. Here, if you're doing this one, you can see it is giving the error. Can you see? Cannot implicitly convert redirect to action result to view result. I'm right. So this is the way how we take the decision where to use the specific type and where to use the generic one. So use the specific type whenever you are sure about I'm returning the JSON data, I'm returning the view, I'm returning the file. Only use that specific type. But if your action is returning the multiple values, depending upon the condition, so use the common, you can say that the action result. So this is about the model view and controller I have explained through the code and through the PPT as well. Now let's understand the communication, how the communication happens between model, view and controller. So what are the requests actually you make in ASP.NET Core? Let's say I'm requesting this URL. Let's say product edit page. So first request receive at the controller label. Inside the controller, we having the action. That action actually execute the code. So what are the parameter we are passing? That parameter is received by this controller. And at the action label, we are doing the complete processing. And finally, what are the result is prepared. The result we render with the alpha-based model on this view page. Now view is going to render in the browser. So now again user interaction start at the view. So user, let's say, will update the unit price. User will update, let's say, the description. Then we'll click on the update button. And that value it will post to the server to update that thing into the database. And finally, it can show the message on the same view or on the different view. On same view, let's say data has been updated. On different view also, we can see. So the the interaction start here from this controller first, then it do with the alpha model, and finally it is rendered on the view. At the view label, we do some update and submit the things to the server. So here view and controller can communicate to each other directly, but between model and view, we don't have the direct dependency. We having here dash dash arrow. It's a partial dependency between the model and between the view here. So this is the way how the model view controller communication is happening. The people who are from the background of ASP.NET MVC5, let's say who already know the ASP.NET MVC5, only for those people this slide is. The people who don't know about the MVC5, don't worry about it. You don't need to look at this one. But some people here know the MVC5 as well, so they should know the differences between these two. So in the older version of MVC5, we having the HTML helpers. Here we having the tag helpers as well as HTML helpers. There we follow the web form and the razor view engine syntax. Here we follow only the razor syntax. There we create two types of view, static and dynamic. So static partial view we having here as it is. The dynamic partial view are replaced by the view component here. There we use global.asx to define the application startup setting. Here we use now startup.cs file and program.cs file. So starting from .NET 6, we having only program.cs file. Before the .NET 6, we having both the files together, which are used in place of global.asx. In place of web.config, we are using here appsetting.json. There we use modules and handlers. Here we use middleware for doing the same thing. That website we can host only on IES, but here I can host on IES, Apache Tomcat, Nginx. There the development can be done only on Windows. Here development can be done on Mac, Linux, and Windows. So these are the differences you will find out between ASP.NET Core MVC 5 and the ASP.NET Core MVC. Clear? So we have done with the MVC pattern here. Let's proceed to the next topic. That is about a razor view engine and a routing. So when it is coming to building the dynamic web pages, so here we are using the razor as a view engine, or you can say as a markup syntax. So razor first time introduced with the ASP.NET MVC3, or it can be used with the C# and the VB.NET language. So in C# we having the CSHTML extension, and VB we having the VB HTML extension. So this is the one example we having here. We have written on the CSHTML page. So this is the way how we can create a single statement block, and this variable we can access on this paragraph. This is a if statement, this is a loop. Even if you're willing to create a function block for the reusability purpose. So this way we can create a function at the code block label, which I can reuse here. Even I can create a function block as well. That is a only isolated one from the other block here. So difference between this style and this style you will find out. Here I can access the global variable, which we are defining using this block here. In function scope, I cannot access any global variable. Here we can only access the things which we define inside this function. So sometimes it happens you want to create a exclusive section where whatever the things are defining only you want to access. So with the help of function block, it can be design, it can be make. So let's see how we can use here the razor view engine. So ultimately razor view engine you will find out helpful for manipulating your HTML markup. Because in HTML we don't have the if statement, loops, switch statement. So how we can introduce these statements in the HTML? So these things can be done here with the help of the razor view engine. So razor view engine is helping us to manipulate the HTML exactly in the same way as we do in the C#. So let's say I'm defining here my name. So I'm putting here name as let's say Mohan. I can mention here my name is @ name, variable name. Even if you want to use here a loop, I can use, let's say, for loop that is starting from I equal to 1, and here I can check whether the number is even or odd. I modulus 2 equal to 0. So we having here, let's say, even number. Then we having here, let's say, odd number. So this way we can do the things here. So if you want to show the number also, let's say what is the even number. So I can put here using @I, odd number @I. So always remember here one thing, like one thing is here we having the two scope. One scope is started by this C# curly braces. Another scope is started by this paragraph, the HTML tag. If something is inside the HTML tag, you have to start a C# block, a C# variable with @ as a prefix. If we are already inside the C# block or C# statement scope, I don't need to start it with @ directly. I can create int j equal to, let's say, I+1. Okay, directly we can start. But if, let's say, we are wrapping the things inside a div, so div is a HTML tag, it will have its own scope. So now this section is behaving as a simple text. That is not a valid C# statement. So to make it a valid C# statement, you have to use the things like this way. Okay, now it is a valid C# statement. Even this one also is not a valid C# statement until you will not put the @. So this rule you have to always follow. If you are inside a HTML tag element scope, started with @. If you are not, then directly you can write it. The another thing we having here about the routing. So you might be thinking how it is serving our application request. So for that purpose, here in ASP.NET Core MVC, we having the routing. So routing is a pattern matching system that monitor the incoming request and figure out what to do with that request. So what are the requests we are making in ASP.NET Core MVC? All the requests first handled by the routing system. This routing system having a root, having some patterns register with itself. So when that pattern is matching, so that time only it is allow us to proceed further to process the request. If pattern is not matching, it returning the things from here itself, go back, and it is returning the 4 not 4 error. Same thing you will find out in case of add method. When we made the non action, it go back and returning the 4 not 4 error. If let's say request is available, then it at the controller label we having the action. So action receive all the data which we send in the request URL, and here with the help of model it process it, and finally what are the result is prepared by this action to render on the view page, and this view is going to render by the view engine here, and finally the response is going to be returned to the UI. So this is a typical workflow we having in our ASP.NET Core MVC application to serve a request. If we're going to look at in more detail in this workflow, so what are the requests we make? The request is going to parse by the routing system internally. Then we register these set of routes. Where we add these routes we add from the program.cs file. In the program.cs file, we define the multiple endpoints. Each endpoint having a unique URL pattern. So what are the requests is coming? The request pattern. We try to match with one of the pattern here. If root is matching, if root found here, then process the request. If root does not found here, then return 4 not 4 error this way. So this is the way how the flow is working. how the things are happening here now in the routing system in the ASP.NET Core MVC. Is it clear? So what are the different types of routing here? We having the two types of routing in ASP.NET Core MVC. One is convention-based routing. So convention-based routing we define inside the program.cs file. And this is the syntax we having for the convention-based routing. So this is the syntax we having for ASP.NET Core 6. This is the syntax we having in 3.x and 5.x. This is the syntax we having in the older version. But in each pattern, you will find out the template is same. The pattern is same, where we having controller first, action second, ID third, and ID is optional here. So question mark is making the ID optional. So here we having the default value for controller as home, default value for action as index. So that's why whenever you find out, you create a MVC project. So by default, you will find out there is a home controller, there is an index controller. So home controller and the index controller are helping us to serve the home page for our application. Because how the domain we access, domain we always access with the domain name only. Let's say scholarhat.com, google.com, facebook.com. So somehow at the domain level, we having a home page. So this is the way how we can decide the home page in our application by providing the default value for our controller and default value for the action as index and making the ID as optional parameter. But if you're willing to serve the pages from another controller, so explicitly need to pass the controller as product. Index action, if it is, I can skip the name of the action. Either I can pass it also, that is fine. If the action name is different, you have to pass product as a controller, create as action. Here ID we are not passing, but in the third case we are passing the ID as well. This is the controller, this is the action, this is the ID. So this is the way based upon this root pattern, the action of a controller we can serve. I hope it is clear to everyone how the convention based routing can help us to serve the n number of controller and the n number of action requests in our application. And to run your application, we must have at least one root pattern. If you don't have the one root pattern, we cannot serve the application request. So let's see how we can design the things here. So here we having a program.cs file, and here I'm having this root pattern. Similar to this root pattern, I can define the another one. And always we define the root pattern in a sequence. And the sequence matters here as the sequence of the catch block matters corresponding to a try. So in case of try catch, what we do, the more specific catch block we put on the top and the generalized catch block we put in the bottom. I'm right? Exactly same thing we do here. So more specific pattern we will keep at the top level. So think about a case where I want to serve the product detail based upon the product ID, based upon the category ID here. I'm adding ID, I'm adding here category ID this way. So now here we having the 4 parameters. Here we having the 3 parameters. And the third parameter is optional. So make sure parameter having the different pattern here. It said 4, it's 3. How look up for the parameter? Look in the top to bottom sequence. First it will check for this root, then this root over there. So wherever it finding out the matching root pattern, it serve this one. And always remember one more thing here, the routing always work as we having the routing in a real life. Think about a case we having a place A, let's say Delhi, and from Delhi to Mumbai, you want to go. So how you can go from place A to place B? Let's say Delhi, let's say Pune, you want to go. So you can go via plane, this is the one route. You can go via train, it's another route. You can go via road, it's another route. So ultimately the destination is same. I'm just selecting the different route. It's a route 1, it is a root 3, it is a root 3. Okay, so root 1, root 2, root 3. Exactly same thing can be used in the MVC routing as well. One action you can serve by following the different route pattern as well. But what are the route you are following? As per the route, you have to pass the parameter, you have to follow the things. So for this route pattern I have designed because I want to access my product controller based upon the product ID and based upon the category ID. That's why I have defined this pattern. So now let me add here a controller with the name of MVC controller empty, where I will add my controller name as product. So my controller name is product controller. Here I'm receiving the two parameters, one for ID, another one for category ID. Here you will write some code to get the data and finally return the product detail page. So here based upon that, we are doing the things here. Similar way, we can have here a one more controller where I want to show the employee detail based upon the employee ID, based upon the department ID. So we having the employee controller. I'm having the integer ID. I'm having here DPT ID this way. And for this, I'm just adding the view. Employee ID and department ID. So here always remember one thing. What is the parameter name we having here? Exactly same parameter name it tried to match here. Do you think we having the last parameter as DPT ID? No, it is cat ID here. So this parameter is not matching. So what you will do, you might try to create a one more pattern. And in that one more pattern, you might be passing this parameter name as the DPT ID because this parameter name is DPT ID. In product, it is fine. It is ID and cat ID. So here also we having ID and cat ID, but here is ID and DPT ID. But if you look at this two patterns, default one and default two. Here also we having the four parameters: controller action ID, cat ID, controller action ID, and DPT ID. Four parameters are there. So when we having the similar pattern, so always first will be used. Second one will not be used here. Because in the URL, we are not passing the parameter name explicitly. Here only values we are passing. So here also we having four values. Here also we having four values. So when it will look up in the top to bottom sequence, it find out the matching here. It will serve the things as per this one. So what will happen? Whatever the second parameter you will try to get here DPT ID, I always get here as 0 because of we having the same pattern here. If you want to check it out here, let's run the things. So in this pattern, this root is useless. So we cannot create two roots with the same pattern. If you will try to create, only the top one will be used. The another one will not be used. Let's see. So now let me add here a breakpoint to product as well. It's there. I'm going to access my product controller page. It is product index 1, 2. So one is coming ID, two is coming get ID. Perfectly, it's working fine. Similar way, I'm going to access my employee controller. It is my employee controller. Employee controller index 1, 2. It is coming ID, it is coming 0. So you can see I'm not getting the department ID. The reason behind it, the parameter name in the second case is get ID as per this route. But here it is DPT ID, that's why it is coming 0. So here, do we have any way, let's say, I can receive the second parameter with the same value? So for that purpose, we having the attribute routing. So attribute routing actually providing us more control over the URL generation pattern. So whenever, let's say, you are willing to create the different pattern for the same action, or like where there is a ambiguity between the patterns in the convention based routing, their attribute routing will help us. So attribute routing we define at the action label, we can define at the controller label as well. So we having the root attribute, using that I can define the complete root here, or I can define the prefix also. It is a root prefix where home is coming automatically because it's empty, and index it is coming home/index. But if you want to exclude this root prefix, I can mention / here. So one action can have many root as well. It's not the case one action will have only one root. No, one action can have the many roots here. Exactly same thing we having for about as well, home/about. Here we define at the controller label once. Based upon that we are serving it products, and we having the list. Here we having products, add it, and ID. So this is the way how the things are working for the attribute routing here. Is it clear? So this problem I can solve of the employee controller using my attribute routing. So what I can do here, I can mention here a root, then we having the employee, then we having the index, then we having the ID, then we having the DPT ID this way. Even it can have the many roots as well. Let's say many roots also we can define. How? So we can define here many root. Let's say it is here employee dash details, or it can be here, let's say emp dash details, where I'm passing the ID, where I'm passing the DPT ID. It might the case. It's up to you, whatever the URL, whatever the things you are going to mention, we define here. So here in place of / I can use a dash also like this way, and we access them. So let's run the things how it is working simply. So I'm going to access here my employee controller and action. So this here, let's say employee /index, then 1, 2. So we having 1, 2. So you can see I'm getting ID as 1, I'm getting DPT ID as 2, working fine. Same thing we having here employee dash details. So we having here emp dash details like this way. ID is coming, DPT ID is coming. So this way it is working. emp dash details 1, 2. It is employee /index. So this way the things are coming, the things are working here simply. And guys, yes, sometime it happens we are working on modules. We having, let's say, admin module, we having, let's say, user module. So in that case, we can create here areas. Under the area label, we can define the routing. So how we can create the area here? Let me add a folder to create the areas. So areas we create, it should have always exactly same name, areas. Inside the areas folder, I'm adding a area. So area name is MVC area here, and my area name is user. So area name is here user, simply. So area having its own controller, its own model, its own views, like this way. Even it will give us a endpoint for registering the routing for area. So this area routing I can copy and mention to the program.cs file. So here actually I'm using only one routing. This is actually useless. I'm removing this. And now let me add the route for area. So either I can put at the root at the top label, either everything I can keep inside it. It's up to you what syntax you want to follow. So we having two syntax. In one syntax, I'm putting the things at the top label here like this way, and I can change it to the, let's say, app. This is a one style. Another style is the everything we can keep inside it like this way. Okay. So both syntaxes are valid. One of them we can follow. Clear? This is where we are wrapping everything in the use endpoint one by one in the same sequence. Here, I'm just wrapping them separately. Things are same. Only the difference you will find out here, area you are getting here. If you want to give the default value to sub the area home page or area dashboard, I can mention like this way. But if you don't want to define it explicitly, I can make it, let's say, empty. This can be optional like this way. This is the route for convention based routing I did here simply. So what I can do here, I can add here a controller for my user area. Let's say MVC controller empty I'm adding. And it is, let's say I'm adding here for dashboard. So it is, let's say, dashboard. For this one, I'm adding the view, index view. So it's added here dashboard and view. And similar to here, we having header, we having this one. So what I can do, I can exactly copy the same things. And as per the UI, I will do the necessary changes. Can you see? Shade folder, I just copied as it is. Menu link, I will change internally. And other things over there. Data, we are not using, I can remove. Model, we will add in future. So we will add over there. So for the designing purpose, I just copied everything from the root label. And here I will do the necessary changes. So here, area would not be empty. Otherwise, it will look for the home page, the root label. So here it would be here, let's say, dashboard. This is dashboard. Here we can add another links. Right now I don't have, I'm keeping only one. So this way, whatever the controller you having, what are the action you having, based upon that, we will add the things. And here to make it area, I will decorate it with area attribute. So it is necessary to make the area and area name. It is user. Similar way, we can have add the another area for admin. And there we will add the area as admin here. Now run the things. So to access the area, we can access like this way. let's say user, comma, dashboard, then index. Can you see? I'm getting the user dashboard file. Click here. It is coming to the user one. So area also we create, even when we will create the project, that time we will create admin area, we will create the user area for code management, for file management. Because everything we never keep at the root level, we always manage module wise. Clear to everyone? So when it is coming to taking the input from the end user, we have to create the text boxes. And when we take the input from the end user, it's not about we have to only take the input, we have to validate that input as well. So in that case, we having the helpers. So helpers can help us to generate the markup for the text boxes. Even they can help us to validate the things as well on the client side as well as on the server side. So in the older version of ASP.NET MVC, that is MVC 5, we having the HTML helper class to create the text boxes. So HTML helper we can categorize into the mainly two category, built-in and custom one. So built-in one further having the standard HTML helper where syntax we having at the rate HTML.text box, and you have to pass the text box name as a string. If it is a strongly type where you have created the view based upon a model class, we have to pass the model class property like this way using the lambda expression. Then we having the templated HTML helper like this way, editor 4, and this is the templated helper we having this side. Even you can create your own custom HTML helpers as well. So still the ASP.NET Core supporting this older style of creating the input control. Because of backward compatibility, it can be the case the older application you are willing to upgrade with .NET Core, but still you are using these helpers at the UI. So without redesigning your UI, you able to use them. But in the ASP.NET Core MVC, these are not recommended to use. The recommendation to use is use tag helper wherever is possible. Wherever we don't have any tag helper, you can use this HTML helper syntax. Even if you're looking at here, we are using tag helper from the day one. Last time we created a login page, and that login page is containing the syntax for the tag helper, where we having ASP4. So tag helper are actually going to simplify the way of creating the helpers. So all the tag helpers are started from ASP des as a prefix. So whenever you're defining, let's say, a anchor tag, so we can mention ASP des action login, ASP des controller account. This way I can define. So benefit of using the tag helper is these are the HTML friendly. Because what happens here, whatever the mockup, whatever the UI page, a UI design we having, it is designed by the designer, let's say the UI team. And that form we now willing to make dynamic. So that form we can make dynamic with the help of the tag helper. We don't need to redesign or rewrite everything. So this is the thing we having here for the tag helper. Let's say form tag helper is available, form action, input tag, label tag, anchor tag, image tag, select tag, text area tag, validation message, validation summary, partial script, link, cache, component, distributed cache, environment. So these are many built-in tag helpers are available, which we can use as per our requirement to do the things. So if let's say you're looking at the syntax of the HTML helpers. I can show you that one also. So this is the one we have created using the tag helper, but in the same code you're willing to write using the HTML helper, we can write like this way. Using we having HTML dot begin form. Then here I need to define the div, then username, then define a text box for username. HTML dot we having the text box. So here, if you are using the standard text box like standard helper, I can define like this way. Similar way, I can define for password at the rate HTML. Then we having password. For password, I'm using your password. Then same way, we having the submit button. Input type submit value is login here. This way I can mention. Even the same thing I can do here using the strongly type helper as well. So in the first syntax, what you have to do, you have to rewrite everything. What is the markup is given to you by the UI team. In the second case, you have to just add some extra property. We don't need to rewrite the things. So things are easy to do. This is the strongly type helper. So these are still supported. There is no issue. But as I said, these are not the recommended one. Recommended one is this one. Because this is HTML friendly, easy to understand. Here you have to put much effort in designing and doing the things over there. So this is about the helpers. Even you can create your own custom helper as well. Because what happens is sometime it happens, I'm willing to create my own custom helper. So that is also possible to create your own custom helpers. So here I'm just showing the example where let's say I'm going to create a custom tag helper for button. If we're looking at here for button, we don't have any custom tag helper. We have, let's say, this input type submit and login. So pretty much simple example I'm giving to you, but it's up to you whether you are willing to use your custom one, whether you want to write the things here itself. Because custom tag helper option objective is here to create your own HTML element you can use here. Even you can extend the existing one. So that is also possible here. So what I'm doing here, I'm just adding here a folder for the helpers. Let's say I'm creating a helper, a custom tag for my button. So I'm adding, let's say, command button. And for tag helper, they having a, a class as well. Let's say this tag helper. So command button tag helper I'm creating. And here I can define which element we are targeting here. So let's say I want to call it here by using the syntax. Let's say command dash button. This way I will call it. And how we create the button? So we create the button like this: str html equal to button type submit. I can mention a name of the button, let's say command. Then I can define here a CSS class. So for the CSS class, let's say I'm adding here a property which I will receive, let's say string CSS class. It is HTML attribute. It is HTML attribute. But how you want to access it? I want to access it here using the class. Then we having here value. Value. This I'm using. And here I can mention the button. This way. Then here I can mention the value. I can define the CSS class. So CSS class I can mention this way. And finally render it as a HTML output dot content, then such HTML content. So this way I can render it. That's it. So whatever the attribute I'm willing to use, I mention here CSS class, I define value, I define here, and in the output I'm just adding as a rendering as HTML content. So to use it, I need to just register it. Register to the view import. So here we having a built-in tag helper syntax registration. Similar way, let me add the tag helper, which is the part of this DLL, this assembly. So assembly name is based upon the project name we having. So that assembly we mention here simply. Now this tag helper I can use anywhere. How can use? I created here a custom tag, command dash button. Using this I can use it. So for this one I can use command button as a tag this way. Then I can define the value. So values, let's say login. I can define the class for button btn dash primary. So this value and class are coming from here. This is the value, this is the class. So whatever you will mention, the same I'm getting. So don't confuse, it's a built-in one. No, it is defined one. Now run the things. So here we have to go to the login page, account / login. Can you see I'm getting the login button here? Perfectly working fine. And if you will check the source code, this way. So we'll find out we having, you can see button type submit name command, and this button is coming. Clear? And this is rendered by this command dash button tag. Clear? Okay, so this is about the tag helper and the HTML helper. You need to know here. Even if it is coming to this one, let's say shade layout. So here at the header label, I mention this tag helper for linking them. But here we can also look for a, let's say directly a href, and we having a URL helper, URL dot action. I can define the action name where you want to go. Login is my action name. Controller name is account. I can use this one also. It's again a old style. In the new, we directly can use ASP-controller and ASP-action. But this old style can help you whenever you are dealing with the jQuery or JavaScript, where you need to look for the URL. I'm right. Sometimes we look for the URL here. So here this URL helper can help you. URL dash action, where I'm using the login. I'm using the account this way. So here it will help us. It is a JavaScript one. This URL further I can use in the jQuery Ajax. Here tag helper is the recommended one, but in this case URL helper you can use. Clear? on this way. So I can console it. Now I can run the application and see the output. Now we look at the console window. You can see I'm getting the output here, account / login. This way. It is coming from the same console, which we have mentioned over there. Clear? So this is about the helpers you need to know. Now the question is here, the helper we created, forms we created. So how the form data we can receive at the action label. Before that, let's understand what are the different types of form we can create. So we can create here the weekly type form that is not connected to any model class. A stony type form that is connected to a model class. So in weekly type, I have not mentioned any ASP-4. Directly I mentioned the name of the text box. It is a simple text box. Here in the right hand side, we having a stony type. So in the stony type at the top label, we first added the model class reference. And what is the property we having here for those we getting the text boxes here. This way, username and password here. So this one we having the stony type. This one we having the weekly type here. When it is coming to receiving the value of a form, let's of a request. So at the action label, we having the 3 style. Like first one here, we having the primitive type. So if the text box's name are matching with the action label receiving parameter, so using these primitive type values, we can access the things here directly. Second one is a complex object. If let's say this model class is containing the same name properties, let's say username and password, which you are sending from the form, so that data will map here automatically. And then the third one we having the iForm collection. So sometime it happens we are not sure about how many text boxes we are submitting to server. So they can be 2, they can be 3, they can be 5. So in that case, we can use iForm collection where based upon the key value pair we can receive. So in the first 2 cases, we know the exact number of control values we are submitting to the server. In the third case, we are not sure how many text boxes we can pass, but we know what can be the key over there. So based upon the keys, we can receive the values over there. So here if you're looking at for receiving the values, you can see we having here a controller for account where we have used this complex object. And this object properties are exactly matching with the text box's name. Even the login page we created as a strongly type. So that's why we able to receive the values. But the same value I can receive by using simple primitive type as well. It's not the case I cannot use primitive type that I can use. So using the text box's name, I can receive this way. So on the login page, if we will go, we having username, we having password this way. So this I'm receiving them, username and password simply. So iForm collection also you can use it. In this case, model state will not work. This will not work here now. Model state will work in case of first one and in case of second one. Not this third one. So one by one things you have to check. Okay. String dot is null or empty for username. Here also we having for password. So this is we having the things. It should be not equal to this way. So here you can see what are the values you are submitting, all are coming. So we having 4 keys. Getting the value, now it is coming. Get is not equal to null. So it will work fine in this case also, but validation will not work. Validation you have to check explicitly in this case. So that's why we don't prefer in the case where we having a form. This is a recommended one where we getting a login page, sign up page and other things. We follow either this style or either this style. Second one. So second one is the most preferable one here. So preferred one is this. Whenever we are having such validation. Now look at the validation part. When it is coming the validation, so we apply the validation on client side as well as on the server side. So the server side validation we apply using the data annotation attribute, or we apply using the if else statement. So here we having the attribute for required, regular expression, and for others. Using these attributes, we apply the validation. For the client side, we use here jQuery and jQuery validation library, which we have in jQuery validate and jQuery validate unobtrusive. Using these three library, we can validate the things on client side. So here, if you're looking to apply the validation, so we having here this. Do one thing. Let me add a model class. I'm adding here a user view model class. Here I will add the property, a string name, email, we having for password, and then for confirm password, then address, and then we having for terms this way. So how we can apply the validation? To apply the validation, we can add a namespace using system.component model data annotation. Now we can make it required error message. Please enter name. And then we having the email, password, address, terms. So it is email, it is password, it is confirm password. Address we can make optional. Terms and condition we can have, let's say, please assume the terms this way. Even for confirm password, we having the compare attribute. To compare its value to the previous one, it is password. Then we having the error message. Confirm password does not match. Confirm password does not match. This I can mention. Even for email, I can add a email address validation error message. So please enter correct email. This I can mention. Even if I'm willing to define a regular expression, so let's say, let me change the contact number. I'm looking for a regular expression error message. Please enter correct contact. And here I can define a regular expression. So regular expression would be here 6789. Then we having the 9 things over there. So this way we can define the various validation simply. So here, based upon these properties, I can create a form. So here we don't have validation control. We having these attributes. Through that we can apply the validation here simply. So now let me create here a view, add view. I can go for the second option, laser view here. Template, I can use a create template here. And last time, if you remembered, I created everything myself. Today, I can take the help of Visual Studio scaffolding option that can help her to generate the things automatically. So template create model class, we having the user view model this way. Now click on the add button. View name sign up, template create, model class, this can bring. So this is my sign up one this way. So name, email, password, confirm password. So what are the things you need? We can mention here simply. So let's say values here, sign up. And for showing the error messages, it is not added any error message spanned for the terms. So that I'm adding explicitly here this way. Even it's added a older HTML helper style for doing the things. But if you want to change it to the span, I can change the span like this way. It is not necessary to use the older one. Clear? So here I'm mentioning, let's say accept terms. So this will create a checkbox. This will create a label. And this is for error message. This change I did. So what is happening here? It is creating the three things for one. We having label, we having text box, and we having the span to display the error message just next to the text box. And here, the Visual Studio is smart enough to generate this markup based upon the Bootstrap CSS. So these are the CSS coming from the Bootstrap. So based upon the Bootstrap, it is generating the things for us automatically. So now let me connect it to the header. So we having here sign up. In this way and login. Now run the things. So go to the sign up one. It is coming like this way. Right now, when you will click on the button, it is by default come with the server side validation. It is coming to server, it is invalid. Continue. It is showing the error messages like this way. And even the contact number I have not made required, but it is showing the error message. The reason behind it is starting from the .NET 6 and from the C# 10.0. Now string type is going to consider as not null. Before that, it is nullable type, but now it's not null. If you want to make it nullable type, explicitly you have to mention question mark like this way. Now it is nullable type. Okay. So this thing you have to consider here, starting from .NET 6. In .NET 5, you don't need to mention, it is by default nullable, but here you have to define explicitly. So here every time we are going to server, even if we will mention the name, error message is not hiding. I'm right. Even if you will look at it, is not showing any error message to this checkbox because Boolean type cannot be nullable. It will always contain a value. False is the default value for a Boolean type. So that's why it is not showing any error message for this checkbox. So in this case, we need to write a custom attribute to validate my checkbox. So let me create a custom attribute to validate the checkbox. So I'm adding here a attribute name, let's say validate checkbox. So this is my, let's say, attribute name I have defined. Click on the add button. So before writing our own attribute, let's look at in this built-in attribute. So this built-in attribute actually inheriting this class, a validation attribute. Exactly same way we can create our own attribute based upon this validation attribute class. If we look inside this validation attribute class, so now I'll do the same thing here. And here we having a method override is valid. So we having some virtual method in this class. So those method we can override to write our own custom logic. So this attribute class I have to mention over here on terms. And this error message is coming from the parent class like this validation attribute. So we apply this attribute on a Boolean type property. Now here I will check if value equal to true. For that, let me do typecasting return true, else return false. This way. This way we can write here. Even we can do one thing. Instead of writing the if else directly, I can write the code return Boolean value. That is a true and that is a false. This way. So this way it is coming validate checkbox where we having true and false. Now let's see how it is working. So click on this one. So now you can see I'm getting the error message. Please accept terms this time. So we have written a custom attribute to validate the things on the server side here using this one. Clear? So server side validation we have done. If we want to replicate them on the client side, so Microsoft return here a separate library jQuery validate unobtrusive. This is a library created by the Microsoft itself that is based upon the jQuery validation library to validate the same thing on the client side as well. So these three libraries we require jQuery, jQuery validation, and jQuery validation unobtrusive to do the things. Now at the underscore layout, make sure after the jQuery, you should have jQuery validation. So jQuery validation we can add using this render section scripts. So let me define the section scripts here. So the account label, I can mention the section script. Why I'm defining a section here? The reason behind it, these two library I need to render after the jQuery. And jQuery is rendering on the layout page after this render body. Because what happens here, the content of sign up page will render here. If I will put the jQuery on this page, it will render here. Means it will render before the jQuery library. In that case, we will get the error message, jQuery is undefined and dollar is undefined. To avoid that message, I want to render after the jQuery. So that is possible to render through the section. So this section name I have defined in the sign up page so that I will render my library here. Clear? So that's why it's a section and we already having a partial view that already containing the reference of jQuery validate library and jQuery validate unobtrusive library. This one we have. Now here I can call this partial view. Partial view I'm calling here, that is underscore validation scripts partial I'm calling here. Now let's run the things. How the client side is working. So it should work now client side as well. So click over here. Client side is working fine. But I'm not getting any error message for my checkbox. Means for the checkbox, client side validation is not working. So as we created a custom attribute for the C# similar way we need to define a custom adapter, because here we having the style of creating the adapters. So let me check the adapter for the checkbox this way. So similar adapter I can add here inside a script tag. So we having here, let's say jQuery, and then we having the validator, then we having the unobtrusive, then adapters dot add this way. So this one we having for checkbox. I will mention here for input checkbox. And then we having the set validation values. So we having a method at the top label. This method code I can reuse there, like here. So rule name is here required. I can mention here, I want to make it required. Value should be here true, this way. And I have not defined here my checkbox. So let's say I'm using here validate chk box. So this is my adapter name I will define here. So such code actually you have to refer through, the help document, the Microsoft having at those places, because these are not possible to write without looking at. Okay. So now in the validate checkbox, we have to implement an interface, that is I client model validator. Implement the interface and do the things over there. So it is here context, and then we having attributes, and then add. So it is, let's say data dash well dash validate checkbox, then the error message. This way we added the error message. So data dash well should be the prefix, it is mandatory to mention. After that it's your name. So what are the name you will mention here? Exactly same name I'm just putting here, validate chk box, this way. Now run the things. So click here, it's working fine, client side clear. So might be thinking how it is working. So this is working because what are the attribute we added at the server side. So those are coming here using this data well true, it is required, data well email for email error message, data well required error message. So this way it is checking it here. So data well true means it is a required one. Data well required, this is the error message over there. So what jQuery is doing, jQuery is checking this attribute, is it required or not. If it is required, and if you have not entered the value, show this error message. Okay, this one, sorry, for required, this is the one. This is for if email is not correct, then show this error message to enter correct email. So this way client side validation are working. So whatever the things we added at the attribute level will be generated at the markup level as well to validate the things, or you can say which is helping us to validate the things on the client side with the help of jQuery validation library. So I hope it is clear how the client side is working and how the server side is working. So server side, these attribute are working here. This one, these for server side, and even in a strongly type view, by reading the attribute, it is adding the HTML attribute as well, so that we can validate them on the client side as well as on server side. So here we have done with the validation, client side as well as server side, and as a best practice, you should apply the both. The reason behind it, the suspicious users, especially the hacker, they don't use the browser. They always use their own tools for testing purpose. Okay. So based upon that, the things can be done. The next topic we have been here, data passing techniques. Like what option are available in the ASP.NET Core MVC for passing the data from one page to another page, even on the same page. So these options are here. So we having the view data and view back for passing the data from action to view like this way. From view to controller, I can post the form. I can use query string or I can use hidden field. Even today also we are doing the same thing. We are posting the form. Okay. If you're willing to pass the data from one controller to another controller, we use temp data. Even sometime it happening inside the same controller, you are doing the things. So there also we can use temp data for passing the data over there. So temp data is a case wherever you are passing the information from one action to another action. It can be inside the same controller, it can be in different controller. Session and cookie, if you have created once, you can access everywhere using the request object. And then we having the view data and view back. Also you can use whenever you are willing to pass something from a child view to the parent view or layout. Because sometimes it happens you need to pass the things to the parent view. So there are also view data and view back you can use. So let's say to the home page, let's say I'm willing to pass the thing using the view data. I'm using, let's say, name. So Mohan, I'm using here. I can use, let's say, view back dot company. Let's say dot metrics. So the name and company, let's say I want to access. So name and company I will access here. So it is name @ view data. Name is coming. Then we having the company @ view back dot company. This way we can access. Even one more thing we having here, the view data and view back internally use the same dictionary object because view back is a wrapper around the view data. So whatever I have stored using the view data, I can access from the view back, and whatever I have stored using the view back, I can access using view data because the underlying container for both of them is same. So name I can read from view back dot name. Even company I can access using view data also. View data. I can access the company this way. And one more thing here, if you're accessing the things inside a C# block, let's say here I'm accessing the things inside the C# block. So in that case, we have to do typecasting. But if something you're accessing in through the view back inside the same case, I don't need to do typecasting because view back is a dynamic property. So for the dynamic one, typecasting is not required. But view data is returning a collection data. So collection always return the data in object format. So object explicitly you have to typecast. Now it will work fine. So whenever you want to avoid the typecasting, use view back. Whenever typecasting is not required, you can go ahead with view data without an issue. So look at the home page. So where I'm having the name, company name, working fine. So this is about the view data and view back. You should know. The next one we have in the temp data. So if you're willing to pass some data from one page to another page, let's take the example of this login. So here after the login, let's say I'm going to the dashboard page. So I'm adding here public I action result, and this is my dashboard. I'm going to dashboard page. So return view. And here I want to pass something, let's say temp data. I'm passing here a message. So I'm passing a message, let's say welcome back. I'm passing, let's say, the name. Let's say model dot username. Even you can use session as well here. So session directly is not accessible here. HTTP context session, and here we having method set string and set integer and set. I cannot directly assign, the object to the session, even to temp data as well. It always going to convert into the JSON string, then only we can pass it here. Let's say, so str user, I need to just create. So JSON serializer, and then serialize. So JSON serializer is a class inside system dot text. System dot text, and then JSON, and then serialize the things. So serialize this C# object. So what I'm doing here, I'm converting my C# object into the JSON string, and that JSON string I'm setting to the session. Now from this session, I can retrieve this C# object as a JSON string and converting back. So let's say I'm just receiving here message from the temp data. So simply I can access it here in this way. And then string name, I can access here, let's say temp data, that is name. Do the typecasting simply. A string in this way. And for the session, I can get the same way string str data equal to we having temp data, no temp data actually. It's a session HTTP context a session get a string. So get a string, that is we having user name. Let's say we use only user. Now I can convert back into the model, login model. Using the JSON serializer, I can deserialize back to this login model this way. Str data, it is login model. So this way I can mention it simply. So this is the message is coming, name is coming, user is coming. After deserializing, the things are coming here like this way. And always remember one thing, whenever we are reading the data, so temp data we can read only once. So this is a read only once. But if you want to read the data from temp data again and again, so in this case you have to use peek method. Because what will happen if you reload the page? As soon as you reload the page, the value for the message will become null. If you want to read it many times, so use here peek method, read many. Now this is the one here. Now the temp data is behaving just like a session. So wherever you want to read the temp data value, I can read it, but I always remember to call the peek method to read the value. Don't read the value using the normal syntax as in the line number 58. If you will the normal syntax, after that you will not able to read it. And temp data is going to store on the client side, and session always store on the server side now. So on the client side, temp data will be stored in the cookie, and the session on the server side will store in the application memory. And session is not by default enabled in ASP.NET Core. We have to enable it. So now let me enable the session here. So let's see how I can enable the session. Open the program.cs file, and here let me add session as a service dependency. Add session. Do mention a use session. App dot use session. Now session we can use it. So the next one, first test this one, then I will show the others. So temp data volume setting, C# object we converted into the this JSON string. You can see. Okay. By mistake, I'm looking for the home. It is not a home inside the same controller. So it is coming here now. So data is coming, message, name, and login model coming back. Clear? Reload the things. You can read the data again. Message is coming again. Name is coming. This one is also coming. So using the temp data dot key, we can keep the value. Otherwise, we can escape here. So welcome back is a message we show only once, not again and again. So it's fine. I don't want to keep it. The another one we having the cookie. If you want to keep something inside the cookie, so here we can create the cookie as well as HTTP context. Then we having the response object cookies append. And then we having the cookie one and cookie value. It is non-persistent cookie. Then I can mention a persistent cookie. Persistent cookie. So in persistent cookie, we having the expiry date. So I can define here new cookie option that is expired. It is date time now add days 7 days. This is my cookie available for 7 days. So difference between persistent and non-persistent cookies. Non-persistent does not have expiry date. So it will expire as soon as you will close the browser. So non-persistent cookie are available till browser is open. As soon as you will close the browser, you will not able to access. Persistent cookie are available for 7 days on the machine because they store as a text file. If you want to read them, we can read using the response object. So we have been, let's say, cookie one. Cookie two. So this way we can read the cookie one and cookie two value. Now run the things to check how it is working. This way we are adding cookie value is getting. Okay. Even cookie you can see at the browser label, inspect. So we having application and we having cookie. So cookie 1, non-persistent cookie, expiry session. Session means browser session. Cookie 2, today we having the 15th of October. After 7 days we having 22 October. So in 22 October it will expire. It is a persistent cookie. Temp data cookie is this one. This is my temp data cookie. It is storing. So temp data also going to store at the cookie label here. This way. Clear? Even we can use query string as well. Let's say if we're willing to pass something in the URL. So just do one thing. We having a, let's say, anchor tag where I can pass the things as a URL ASP action, let's say data ASP des root des ID. So ASP des root, and after that whatever the name we will mention if it is not the part of the root parameter, because here if you're looking at in the program.cs file we having some parameters name ID, get ID. So if the name which you're passing after the root are not matching these parameter, it will be passed as a query string. So name it will pass as a query string, ID it will pass as a root parameter. Exactly similar to the name I can pass, let's say company. So company, let's say it is DNT. And where it will go? It will go to the controller, let's say home itself. In home controller, let me add a action with the name of data, like this way. And here I can receive ID as a parameter, name as a parameter, company as a parameter, and here also I can receive the things. Let's say a string name. So I'm using request dot query. Let's say we having company, request dot query, and then company. This way we can receive. So we having the two style to receive the query string data. Either receive them as action label receiving parameter, but if you don't have this one, so using the request object also we can receive it. So if we use only one style, I'm showing you for learning purpose both style, either use this one, either use this one. ID is a root parameter, that's why I cannot retrieve it using request.query, but name and company are the query string parameter. So query string parameter always exposing the URL. You will see in the URL name and company are there. So let's run the things and check out. Home data. Can you see name is coming in the URL, company is coming in the URL. 2 is coming as a root parameter. I have not put any breakpoint. Let me put the breakpoint to check out how it is working. Reload. ID is coming, name is coming, company is coming. And here also you will see name is coming, company is coming. Clear? So these are the data receiving, let's say query string way. Today we are going to start with how we can perform the database operation. So to perform the database operation, we will use here entity framework core. So using the entity framework core, we can perform the database operation. So when it is coming to the entity framework core, so entity framework core is an ORM tool which is helping us to query the database in object-oriented fashion. And apart from the Entity Framework core, you can use Entity Framework 6.4 as well. You can use Dapper as well to perform the database operation here with the .NET Core based application. So the Entity Framework core is a cross-platform. It is not an update to the older version of Entity Framework. They write it from the scratch. And the releases of Entity Framework core exactly same as we having for .NET Core. There is no difference. Along with each version of .NET, we have the Entity Framework core version as well. These are the things where Entity Framework core we can use. Let's say .NET Core based application, Cosmos DB, SQLite, Oracle, MySQL. What are the most popular SQL database? Everywhere we can use the Entity Framework core. These are the things Entity Framework core does not support, because these are the things supported in the older version of Entity Framework 6.x, but nobody actually used them, so they have now excluded. So whenever you're working with the Entity Framework core, we having the two style of working here: code first and the database first. So in the course first, everything we define at the code level. Let's say we are defining the table name, so we can use table attribute. For the primary key, we can use key attribute. For the not null, we can use required attribute. For defining the column data type, I can use column attribute. So these things we having for the code first. This is the way we can define the convention here. So whenever the classes you are defining, you are creating an Entity Framework core, each class follows some rules here. Like first we having the naming convention. So whatever the class properties name we have, with the same name, it create the table name. It create the column name in the database. What are the data type we having in the C# corresponding to the data type, we having a data type in the SQL Server. So integer will map to the integer, string will map to the varchar or n-varchar. So that is a type convention we having. Then we having a primary key convention. As per the primary key convention, if we having a class with the property as ID or class name suffix ID, that field act as a primary key. So here in case of category, we having the category is my class name, then suffix ID. So it is becoming a primary key. Similarly for product ID is primary key. Then we having a unit price. For unit price, we having the decimal here. So decimal is going to map with decimal. Then we having the foreign key. So in the foreign key, category ID is mapping to the foreign key here. So for the relationship of what you have to do, you have to mention here a navigation property. So this is my navigation property. Based upon that, this category ID is going to map as a foreign key with this primary key. It is mapping here simply this way. So this is the way how the built-in convention are working in Entity Framework core for doing the things over there. So in the Entity Framework core, when it is coming to the data modeling approach, so first today we are going to start with code first. Then I will tell you here how we can follow the DB first approach. So now open the Visual Studio and try to create the things here. So here I'm creating a project. So let me create here a blank solution. It's a EF database operation or EF DB operation. It is fine. Give a short name. Now here we can add a new project for the class library. It is, let's say, code first. For code first, I can define the class. I'm defining here the category class. For category class, I'm adding here category ID. And I'm adding here a string name. This way I added the category. Now let me add the another class for product. So it is public. I'm adding here product ID. Then we having name. Then we having decimal, unit, price. Then we having here category ID. So this way we added these two classes. So these are the two independent classes. We have not defined any relationship between these two classes. So these are two independent classes we are having. Now here if I'm willing to define, the things here, so I can define the things explicitly. So to define the thing explicitly, I need to add here a namespace using system dot component model, then data annotation. For that purpose, I can define here the key attribute for primary key. Then I can define here required. So by default from the .NET 6, all the string properties are not null. We don't need to define them explicitly, not null. Then we having here for column. So for column, I can define here, let's say type name, that is varchar 50. Then we can define for description, it is 250. Now category ID, I can define the foreign key here explicitly, foreign key. But for defining the foreign key, I need to add a navigation property. So I'm adding here navigation property for the category this way. This way I can define the navigation property. So this is not the class name, this is the property name. So this way we define the foreign key, we define the primary key. Here I'm not defining anything. I want to show you here how the entity framework core follow the built-in convention to generate the things. An entity framework will not create the tables for all the classes which we are adding in this project. It create only the classes for those. It only create the table for those classes which you add into a context class. So now let me add here a context class. So it is a, let's say app db context class I'm adding. Let's make it public. Now I'm adding here, let's say db set. So for using this appdb context, I need to add here the entity framework core NuGet package. So now let me add here the entity framework core NuGet package reference to do the things here. So the package which we are looking for here is here entity framework core. This one. So entity framework core SQL Server package we have to download. Then along with the SQL Server, we need to the entity framework core tools package as well, because we are going to use here migration to create the database. So in the code first, this package also required the tools one. In the DB first approach, this tools package is not required. Now in the appdb context, let me use the built-in class available in entity framework core, that is db context. This way we added. Now here let me add the property for db set. db set we having for category. So I'm using here categories. This may get set. Similar way I will add here for the product also. Product. So this is my product set. This way we added the things. So we added here category, we added here product this way. And here we are following the code first approach. So we need to define the connection string as well if you're willing to create the thing. So override on configuring. For on configuring, I'm defining here option builder. Let me add a condition here. Let's say option builder, then we having is configured. Because what happens here when I will use this project with my web application, with my web API, so we always read the connection string from the app setting file. But right now we have not added any web app directly. We are using this project. So that's why I'm checking first. Do we define the connection string? Do we configure it? If we have not configured, then define the connection string here. If we configure already, then don't execute this block. So this condition is about that. So now here, let me add here SQL Server. So connection string we have been here as per the SQL Server. So I'm going to add it. So as per my system, I'm going to use the connection string here this way. Then database name. So this is my server detail. Database name we can define. Let's say it is EFDB 18th 16th October. So what are the database name you will give here? Exactly same name it will use to create the database here. Okay. Now we can do the migration. So now let me build the things. And here let's do the migration tool. Then we have in here package manager console this way. So here we can run the command at dash migration name, let's say initial. So add a migration command you need to run. What are the changes we have done here in our model? Based upon that, it will generate the code for us so that we can create the table in the database. So you can see we having here up method, which we use to upload our model changes to database. You can see it is having a method create table for category, where category ID is a primary key. It is identity column as well. And here the name is here and where max. Because in category, I have not defined anything explicitly. So it is following the built-in convention. So as per the built-in convention, all the string type will map to the and where max. Exactly same things happening here. For the product, we have defined the things explicitly. So that's why name is here varchar 50, description is varchar 250, unit price decimal 18,2, category ID is here integer. So this way we are defining the things here simply. Then we having a down method. In the down method is dropping the table for product and category. Because sometime it happens, whatever the migration you have done, you are willing to roll back. So in case of rollback, this down method will help us downgrade for upgrade. And this file is a part of this migration folder. And here in this migration folder, every time whenever you will do the change, we will create a new file. And this file always having a, the number prefix. And this number actually generate based upon the date time. So just read this value from right to left. So today we having the 16th October, 16/10/2022. It's a date today. Similar way, the right number is mentioning a time. So if you will generate the similar migration file after, let's say 1 minute, 2 minutes, this number would be bigger. It always find out which is the biggest number. Based upon that biggest number, it find out this is the latest migration file. And what are the changes we are doing in this migration are the part of this model snapshot file. In the model snapshot file, all the changes are mentioned. So this is just like a log file for the schema changes. So every time when you will do any change, this snapshot file will be updated. So don't delete anything manually from here because it's auto-generated code. Don't delete anything manually from here. This is also the auto-generated code. This thing you have to always keep in the mind. Now let's run the next code that is about here update dash database because whatever the changes we have done, these are only at the code level right now. These are not committed to DB. So to commit the changes to DB, run the next command, update database. So it has been done without an issue. So let's open the database and you will find out here. So we having EFDB 16th of October this way. And you can see table name is their categories. It is using here the plural naming convention. Name is nvarchar max. Similar way we having the product table. We having the things here varchar category ID foreign key. So these things are coming for product and category simply. So this is the way how the mapping are happening here. So here we define the thing explicitly. Here it is as per the built-in convention. We having an entity framework core. Okay, so we have done with the database creation over here like this way. Now let's say you're willing to do some changes in the tables. Are you willing to create some new tables as well? How we can do here? So in that case, it is simple. I'm adding here a new class. For the new class, I can add here a simple things where we having, let's say, a user. For user, I'm making it public like this way. It's my, let's say, user ID. I'm having here, let's say, property, a string, name. We having here, let's say, string, address. If we can update the existing class, existing entity as well, let's say here, I can do update this one also. So I'm defining here, let's say column, then we having type name. I'm using here, let's say varchar 50 here, simply like this way. So now again, same steps you have to repeat. Just open the package manager console, do the migration here. So I'm adding here add dash migration, it is update 1. This way I'm adding a new migration file. So if you want to define explicitly, you can define explicitly, or you can exclude it. It's up to you. Update dash database here. So this is the way we did the things. Database we are updating like this way. Now what are these changes we have done, you will find out here. So update this database. The user one it's not added because I have not registered over here. That's why user is not coming. In existing table is added the things. So in the existing table, if you will find out, it changed the type of the name varchar 50. But for user, we need to add a entry here for DB set this way. So this is my users. I can again generate the things, add dash migration, then update to here. Now again do the things. Update dash database. Now you will have this new table as well. This way. Whenever you are following the migration, always remember one thing. There is no person, let's say everyone in the team will not be responsible for doing the migration. Only one person in the team will have this responsibility for doing the migration. Otherwise, you will not able to sync the things. Okay, so code first approach is all about the communication between the team members and taking the responsibility of doing the migration. If you feel you cannot follow this one, because in this way you have to have the more understanding about the relationship, you need to have the more understanding about the object oriented programming. If you feel uncomfortable over there, you can follow here database first approach, because in the database first approach we don't need to think about much. With the help of tool we can generate the things. Even we have to always do the changes in the database. We don't need to every time run the migration command to update the database to roll back the things, because these things need expertise in that area. If let's say I'm willing to roll back the things, so we having the same command update dash database, then mention the target migration to which point you want to roll back. I want to roll back to update one. So I'm mentioning here, let's say to update one. It is roll back my update two. If you will check the SQL Server side, user tables will be deleted. There is no user table. Even it is having a history table for keeping that history. Exactly same history it is maintaining here. But it is not having the snapshot. A snapshot is contained by this CS file. And right now this file is available here. It's not deleted from the code. It only roll back from the database. But if you want to delete it from the code as well, just run the next command, that is about remove dash migration. By running this command, it will delete the things from the code as well. Now it's deleted the update to file, as well as it updated this snapshot file as well. But what are the code label changes you have done? Let's say user file, it will not delete. Even the user file changes, it will not delete. Only migration related things it can delete and update. Other things will be as it is. Now do the necessary changes in the user class in another one, and again run the same command, add migration and update data. Okay, so this is about the code first, where one person should be good enough for handling all these migration related activity. But if you're looking for a simple and the easiest way, that is the most preferable one, that is the database first approach. For the database first approach, you need to have a tool, EF Core powered tool. Because right now we don't have a built-in support for the database first in Visual Studio. I'm hoping soon they will add it built-in as well, but right now it is available as a separate tool. I'm expecting this in this release or next release, this tool will be integrated with Visual Studio. So for this one, I shared the link in the chat window. You can download and set up it on your Visual Studio. To set up it, you have to restart. You have to stop your Visual Studio instance and start it again. Now here I'm adding a one more class library for DB first. So what are the database we have generated recently using the code first migration? Based upon the database, I can create the code also. Let's see how I can create. So do right click, then we having the option add, sorry, not add, we having EF Core Power Tool. So EF Core Power Tool is the option to generate the code. So when you will open it first time, it will come like this way. Now add a connection with the database. Add database connection. So what are the server name I'm having for my SQL server? I'm mentioning there. Let's do copy, mention there. Test the connection, select the database. So it is EFDB 16th of October. Click on OK. Make sure you have selected EF Core 6 here. Then click on the OK button. Then you can look for tables this way. So what are the tables you want to import? You can import. What are the SP you having? You can import over there. Everything can be imported. Then define here context name. So here I can mention the DB context is my context class name. Namespace you can define DB first or whatever you want to mention. Then path for the all entities. So all entities I want to keep in a separate folder with the name of entities. And db context file I will keep at the root label. So I'm putting here dot slash there. Then make the plural and singular naming convention, because in the database we having the table name in plural, but here we will create the entity class name as singular. So categories table will map to category class, products table will map to the product class. So as an ES it will remove at the time of creating the things. Now click on the OK button. So this way the code is auto generated, which we have written ourselves. It is the simplest and the easiest way to follow the entity framework database first approach. So what are the changes you have to do? You have to do only at the database level and forget about this generated code. It is taken care by the Visual Studio itself. We don't need to worry about it. Clear? So now the thing is we can add here a new project here so that we can perform the CRUD operation. Before that, let me do one thing. Let me create here a SP and function through that we can do it here. So I'm adding here a procedure. Let's say create procedure. Then USP underscore get product. I'm having here product ID. And then we having as begin, and I'm creating here a very simple procedure so that you will get to know how to call the SP from the entity framework. Where so we having the product ID at the rate product ID this way. So this way I can create the SP here. So now it is created here SP. Now this SP for your reference you can keep inside this folder. I'm adding here a SQL scripts. So I added the SP for a reference. Now to update the things again, follow the same steps. EF core power tool, reverse engineer, then update the things here. So SP is coming this way. Don't change anything, just click on OK. So for SP it's added here a other context class with the name of appdb context procedure that is designed to call the SP only. So entire code has been generated. I don't need to write anything explicitly. How they calling the SP? So they calling the SP exactly same way as we call in the SQL this way. Clear? So let's see how we can perform the database operation on product and category table. For that purpose, I'm adding a new project for my web app. So I'm adding here a new project for web app this way. Create it. Now here let me add a controller for product. MVC controller empty I'm adding here. And this one we having for product here. Like this way. So we added the product controller here. Now here you can use any layer, DB first or code first. There is no difference in writing the query. So let's say I'm using a DB first. Now let me define the database connection string here. So I'm defining here connection string, and then database name. This way. Now register this dependency from the program.cs file. So we having builder.services add db context. Then we having here app db context. Now define here options like this way. Options dot use SQL Server. Read the connection string from the app setting.json builder dot configuration, then get connection string. Define the connection string name. It is db connection. This way I can mention it. So this way we added it. Now inside the product controller, this app db context which we register here, we can inject. So map db context. So now it will not use the connection string defined in the code first, a db first. It will use only that connection string which we are passing from the program.cs file. Now here we can create a list of product based upon all these entities which we added here. So do right click, I'm adding a view here, razor view. So we having here for product listing. So view name is index, template we having list, model class we having the product here this way. Now we can click on that button to generate the code. That is auto-generated code as per the scaffolding option. It's done. Let me remove the extra things from here this way. So edit and delete option I'm leaving as it is, others I just removed. Now let me write the query to fetch the data from the database. So to write the query, it is pretty much simple. I have to just write a simple statement as we write in the C# collection, like this way, to list. It will now fetch the data from the product table. I don't need to mention here connection open, connection close, command object, data reader. The one line will do the things for us and will show the list of product. And here, whenever you're writing the query, so same query we can write here with many style. This is the one we having. I can use here a filter condition as well. Then we having, let's say, where, and here if I'm willing to add any condition, I can add this. Let's say product ID greater than 0. This way I can use it. So this is for filter purpose we having. So when we write the query here, we having the two style, method based syntax, and we having the query based syntax. Is a method based syntax. Same thing I can write here using the query based syntax. In query based syntax, I can write the same query similar to the style we write in the T-SQL. Let's say from prd in underscore db dot product, then select prd this way, and finally dot to list this way. If I'm willing to add a join here, I can add a join. So join get in prd dot. Okay, first let me add db dot categories on prd dot category id equals, then get dot category id. This way we can mention. Now it would be a join query. Okay, but here I'm not selecting the column from both of them. I'm selecting the column only from one. If I'm willing to select the column only from both the table, we write that the code like this way. prd dot product id prd dot name, then unit price, then we having the description this way. So now it is an anonymous type. It's not a product class object now. So this is the things, this is the way how we can write the join query here. Clear? So now I'm just commenting this one to return the things here. Now let me write the code here to create a new product. So to create a new product, let me write the create action here. Return a view. Then we having the create here. For create, let me write the things create, view name create, template create, model class, let's say it is product. This way I'm creating it. So using the scaffolding, it will generate the things here. So this way I'm getting the create one. And here I'm just changing the text to save. And category ID I will bind as a drop down list. Product ID I'm leaving here this way. So for category ID I'm using here, let's say view back dot categories. Then we will use a db dot categories. So now here in place of input, I will use here select statement, where I'm using here ASP items, and here I can use new select list. So what is the data source? So data source is here view back dot categories. Then we having the value field, category ID, text field, name. Then we having the option here. So it is option. In option I'm mentioning here select, value empty, this way. So this way I bind the drop down list for the create one simply. Now let me define the create post method here. HTTP post receive product model. Now let me check the model state dot is valid this way. If it is valid here, now let me call here method on product add. And then we having db save changes finally, and after that it will redirect to the action. Redirect to the action index. If let's say product is not added, go to the same page and show the error message here simply like this way. For testing purpose, let me do one thing. Let me add a data into the category table. I'm adding a category books. I'm adding a category for, let's say, courses. Product I will add by running the code. Let me set web app as a startup project. Unprogram.cs file, change the startup page to product action. So click on the create new link. From here I'm getting the categories books, MVC book, the unit price, save it. It's added here now. We can check in the database. It's coming. Now we can write the code for edit and delete also. So exactly same way as we have written the code for create, I can write for edit, where I will receive a parameter ID, product ID. And based upon that, I can get it product, and I'm passing here product this way. And for edit, either you can create a separate view, either you can use this create one itself. So let's say I'm using this create one itself. Create. this way. So view name I'm passing here, then model I'm passing here. But on the create page, I need to do some changes for that. So now let me check if model coming not equal to null means model is there. So it will happen only in case of edit, else create. So this I can mention as a title. Here also as a title I can mention this way. So this is action, edit and create. Button name is common here, save. So here in case of edit, let me do mention update. It's fine here. But make sure we are passing the product ID also. Otherwise it will add as a new record. Input type hidden. ASP4 I'm using for product ID this way. But product ID we are not using in case of create because product ID is a auto increment column, but for edit it is required. So here we having a model state valid. So we have to remove the error message for product ID. So remove the error message for product ID. Otherwise it will be invalid because of that input field. Now we have done, and if let's say it is failing, go to the same page again. So if it is not coming, go to the same page again. Model. For edit, make sure we passing the ID as well. Item dot product ID. For delete also, we are doing the same thing. Even here in delete, we can add a confirm box. New on click. Then we having the return confirm. It is are you sure to delete this way. For delete, we write the things for delete here. So now do mention here delete, look for item, check out here if product not equal to null, then delete it here. db dot products. Then we having here remove. So remove my product. Then db dot save changes. And finally redirect to the action that is index this way. So we will go to the index page here. Now let's run the things to check out how it is working. So click on the delete. Are you sure to delete? Okay. Deleted. Let me create new one. Azure save it. Add it. It is coming edit text now. Change the price. Changed. So all the CRUD operation are here now working for this one. So this is the way we can write the code to perform the create, edit, and the delete operation here. If you are coming to the channel first time, I request you to please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon so that the information about such valuable courses will get notified.